95% of people trying to adopt AI fail.
With us today, such a great honor to be standing in front of the great leaders that I'm standing in front. And welcome to the AIMS International Egypt Breakfast Business Forum. So we are standing right here in this inspiring room full of leaders and professionals gathered all here today, all driven by one shared purpose: to explore how leadership can continue to thrive in times of change. Over the past few years, the pace of transformation has been nothing short of extraordinary. We've seen industries evolve overnight, new technologies reshape the way we work, and the meaning of leadership itself taking new dimensions. Today, leading successfully isn't just about results. It's about resilience, adaptability, empathy, and of course, purpose. That's exactly what this morning's discussion will be about, uncovering what truly takes to lead with impact in 2025 and also beyond. Before we begin our panel conversation for this day with our great panelists, allow me to welcome to the stage Mr. Dimitris Kliptakis, and he is the President of AIMS International and the Managing Director of AIMS Greece. Your opening remarks.
Great. Good morning, dear guests, dear partners. We would like to thank you for being with us today. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you. I hope you will enjoy the discussion and the networking. And I will be looking forward to meet you all later. Before going into the meeting, I would like to specifically mention the effort of our Egyptian team to organize such a great event here today, this morning, and also thank our panelists for accepting the invitation to be part of this discussion. In order to give them a little bit strength and boost, I would like to ask you to applaud them. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I hope you will enjoy it. I would like to ask our partner Zeinab, to come to the floor now, and see you all later. Thank you.
It's really a pleasure to have everyone here. Thank you for coming. Today is really a special day for us at AIMS International. We kick off our regional meeting as well. We have our colleagues who have traveled from all around the world, along with our friends, clients, and prominent business leaders in our business community. We come together as an organization several times a year. On this occasion, this is one of those days. We don't just discuss important updates. We don't just discuss best practices. We come together to reflect on how we continuously evolve and do what we do best. And this is finding, developing, and supporting leaders. And when it comes to support, I think in the room today, we can all agree that one of the toughest things is leadership today. It has become very complex than ever before. If we look back just only 5 years or 7 years ago, our world looked very different. How we conduct business, how we lead teams, and how organizations operate have now been completely reshaped. And this morning's conversation, the new leadership playbook, is about exactly this. As Leen mentioned, our moderator, we're operating in a world that now is defined by global tension, economic turbulence, and the constant sense of what we all now call uncertainty. This is not only affecting one region or one market, it's now everywhere. And it has changed the way we think, work, and make decisions. Change has also come in new formats inside our organization. And I know that everyone in the room will resonate with what I'm saying. We are managing new generations.
that have their own expectations of what work should look like, what leadership needs to represent, and what they want to stand for as people. Other than that, you have top priorities in the boardroom, such as sustainability, ESG, and diversity. And on top of all that, leaders must deliver every day. And we want to acknowledge that it's a lot. The key question we want to explore is, what does all these changes really mean for leadership now and in the future? We realize that these challenges are not just pressures, but they can also be opportunities, pushing us to redefine what good leadership really looks like. This means that it's now no longer about having all the answers, but more about having that mindset to adapt, to listen, and to always keep on learning. That's why today we have an exceptional panel who will talk about practical insights, lessons learned, and personal stories that will reflect on how leadership is truly evolving. Together, we will explore 5 key dimensions. The first one is building a sustainability mindset, becoming tech-savvy, and understanding the real impact of AI in business, navigating generational differences, and adapting leadership styles accordingly, promoting women in leadership and succession, addressing the real challenges CEOs face today, the ones no one had to deal with a few years ago. In simple terms, the way we think and work and go-to behaviors have changed. So it's not about resisting, it's about learning to work with it. So today will be about honesty, reality, and authenticity in the workplace. And to welcome our distinguished panelists, but I would like to welcome to the stage Ahmed, Ghaly, who is the CEO of SDS MENA and previous CEO of Siemens, Ahmed Moghazy, founder and now board member of Intro Technology Group, previously Advances, Leonie Pentz, Leonie is our Global Vice President at AIMS International, and Elena Leonidou, Deputy Head Board Services and Managing Partner AIMS Cyprus. Thank you so much for being with us. And Leen?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zeinab. So, ladies and gentlemen, after the great introduction to our panelists, I will allow me to say good morning. And hopefully it's going to be a very fruitful discussion that we're going to have on the stage for today. For today, we're going to be talking about the new leadership playbook. So what leaders need to know and do now. Mr. Emad, if you'd allow me to start with our first question with you. You coach CEOs through their toughest moments, right? So we're talking about big challenges that are facing leaders, and I believe there are plenty, if I'm not mistaken. Let's start with the problems or the hardships that leaders face today that weren't on the radar a few years ago.
Okay. So good morning, everybody, and thank you for AIMS for inviting me to this distinguished panel and with a distinguished audience. Okay, I think we need to differentiate between challenges and struggles. So challenges are where you face in the business environment, either external to your company or the challenges you face within your company. And the struggle is your personal struggles as a leader or as a CEO. So if I start with the business challenges, the first one on my list is talent management. Talent management is becoming very, very difficult. It's not only in Egypt. My last job was in Europe. So Europe is even more difficult than in Egypt, because there you have it's an employee market driven, not an employer market driven. So in the region, it's an employer market driven. In Europe, it's an employee market driven, and you can post a job, a director job, and you wish that people will apply. So, or at least you wish that people with the required capabilities will apply. So second one, of course, everybody is facing the regional and global market disturbance with all what we see in the simplest example is the tariffs, the U.S. tariff. It impacts many industries. And then come to the list, risk management as a CEO, and of course your leadership team. You need to manage the different risks you see in the business, either from operating in different countries, from currency risks, inflation risk, many other topics impacting the company. And then the financial, of course, the financial pressures, your cash flow, your profitability, your day-to-day financial things, which is it's a moving target. So you need to have a very different strategy to deal with these things. And then, of course, the next one is the digital transformation, AI, and with all the hype around AI. If you don't know how to get the signal and not to follow the hype, that will be very difficult. And then, of course, balancing short-term with your short-term activities with your long-term perspective, because you need to grow, you need to stay profitable, but you have to maintain your growth, because you might be in a situation that suddenly your cash cow disappears from the market or disappeared. Nobody wants to buy this specific product or solution. That's the easy part. Then let's come to your very specific challenges on your company. Of course, especially if you are a new hire, a new CEO or a new leader, your board are expecting miracles from your side. The next day they hired you, and you find out that your strategy need to complete revamp. Of course, your organization are looking for clarity, which they did not get it from your predecessor. A lot of internal things which you need to manage and to handle beside the external one. And if you talk about your personal struggle, CEOs and leaders, they have imposter syndrome, and they have fears to continue the job. That's regardless if you are leading a 100,000 company or leading a 1,000 company. We all have this at a certain point of our time. We have the imposter syndrome. We have fears to not to perform, fears to not to continue in our new job being the CEO. And then you are isolated. The CEO it's a lonely job at the top, and that's put a lot of pressure on you personally as a CEO, because when you have a side discussion even with one of your leaders, you don't know how will he take this discussion. Is he going to take it for the face of the discussion, or he will start to create stories around it? I personally, in two of my CEO jobs, for example, if I walking in the company and I greet somebody morning and I was a bit smiling, and the next one, for whatever reason, I was not that much smiling, people start to think why he was not smiling to me and he was smiling to the other person. That happens. People are taking your action as a CEO very personal. So I use a term, you are always on stage. You are always on stage. As a CEO, everybody is looking at you, internally and externally. They're watching what you are doing, which words are you saying, which people are you talking to, how much have you spend time in this particular meeting. So you are always on stage, and you need to be aware of that you are on stage, and that you can I wouldn't say watch your actions, but you need to be humble. You need to be let's say have your real personality, because you cannot fake your personality to appear somebody else. So CEOs and leaders, they face challenges from the external environment, challenges related to their specific companies, and they have their own personal struggles which they need to work on in order that they can really perform in their job.
Right.
So since you mentioned those challenges, and I believe a lot of the challenges that a leader might face might come from change. So if one of the CEOs, for example, approaches you feeling overwhelmed by the constant change that they're seeing, what's the first piece of advice that you would give?
The first piece of advice that the CEO needs to have a system. He needs to have a system. How is an operating system for his job? Because if you continue let's say the success you did before being a CEO, to be the CEO will not support you after being the CEO. It's a completely different ballgame. Before the CEO, you were a functional manager or a leader for a smaller team. So you care about a specific for your for the business or for the industry. Being a CEO, that was my first shock as a first-time CEO, that I had to spend 50% of my time dealing with people. Regardless, people are employees, are the customers, suppliers, higher ups, peers. 50% of my time only dealing with people. And you started to see problems, or I wouldn't say problem, but challenges and issues which I imagined I would have not thought about. So that's the first. Second, your expectation from the job is completely different than the reality. Completely different. And third, many of the leaders are not really prepared to be a CEO. Okay, that's the reason from Harvard Business Review. There is a figure based on research among top CEOs, 58% to 60% are not prepared to be a CEO, and they're shocked from the expectation of the job. So you need as soon as you know that you will be a CEO, you need to prepare yourself. So preparing yourself that you understand your expectation is completely different. If you expect you are the only decision maker, that's more pressure than you think that you are, and you are not the only decision maker, regardless what is the structure of the company, unless you are the 100% owner, but you are not the only decision maker. So that's the first. Second, dealing with, especially when the organization is a large organization, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, that's a completely different level of challenges and problems. And if it's a multicultural organization, that adds, of course, adds to the challenges. So you need to fit in the culture of your organization before starting to do any changes. Fitting in is a very important, because many CEOs, they come in, I will change this, I will take this department out, I will change the 50% of the management, without really fitting in, understanding the real issues, understanding the business, and then start to change. So having a system for your operation is, I would say, 50% of your success as a CEO. What do I mean by a system? I mean by a system, the first thing, the basic thing, control your agenda, control your calendar. Many CEOs, their calendars are controlled by their office managers. So they plug in meetings, even external or internal, without they thought or they think that the CEO would benefit or would love to meet this guy. So control your calendar. This is a very basic thing, but it's very crucial. You control your calendar and control your energy. You don't lose your energy with topics or with people or in internal meetings or even sometimes external meeting, which it doesn't make any sense to go there as a CEO. So control your agenda is number one. And then the second two is plan in advance. So plan at least, I would say, quarter, 2 quarters in advance. Have days within your week. This day I will go to the factory. This Wednesday I go to the factory. Thursday internal meetings. Monday, Wednesday customer meetings. So be predictable. Be predictable to your organization. Plan in advance. Okay, and also I prefer to use the Pareto rule: 20-80%. 20% of my effort should generate 80% of my results. The other way around, you will fail. So always try to see where is the 20% that I can focus on that will generate 80% of my objectives and goal and targets. So in a nutshell, I advise him having a system. The world will continue changing. So this is now the ipso facto. I remember the first training I got after being the CEO in 2016. It was a general management training like the offered by the top universities. And the second day, they talked about the VOOC award. Of course, 2016, nobody, at least I didn't know what is a VOOC award. Of course, today, the VOOC award, this is something very, very, we all know what is VOOC award because we live in the VOOC award. So, and now we are in a VOOC award plus where the system is becoming not only vulnerable and there is a lot of ambiguity, but it's very fragile. And we see the fragility in the supply chain, what happened to the supply chain during the COVID, during the war in Ukraine and the war and the conflict in the Middle East. So supply chain is becoming a very critical and strategic for companies and they're becoming very fragile. So that's also adds to the complexity. So having your system at least will decrease 60-70% of the pressure on you as a CEO, because at the end of the day, what happens? Either you fail to manage the company or you will burn out. There is no third alternative. If you are not really doing it with a system, you will lose your health to make the company successful, or you will lose both. So that's so having a system. My advice is for the CEO, have a system to manage your company.
So 2 points I would like to get back to them once we get the conversation going with the rest of the panelists. You mentioned imposter syndrome, and I believe that a lot of the people who are sitting with us in this on this panel today might have felt at a point in their life, how are we going to get over it? And we are also going to get back with different questions, but allow me to move on and talk about sustainability. And the question is for you, Leonie. So if we're going to be talking about sustainability, it used to be the side conversation in boardrooms, right? Right now, it's central. What changed, and why must the mindset start from the top now?
Thank you so much. Thank you for the question. Yes, and thank you for your very insightful notes. I think we're going to talk a lot about what it takes to be a good manager today. When we think about sustainability, I think, and this was also our journey in AIMS when we started the topic a couple of years ago, when we thought, oh, this is going to be a great idea. Let's look at how do we become more sustainable as an organization. And there are a myriad of things. It's like a quagmire of SDGs, right? Because all of a sudden you look at the United Nations, you go, oh my God, there are 17 SDGs, and you think, how am I going to make this a priority in my business? And I think the bottom line is you cannot make every one of the 17 SDGs a strategic priority in your business. It's just simply not possible. So if I can borrow a little bit from one of my colleagues and friends, she came up with the concept of doing a materiality impact assessment. So before you decide what your priority should be in sustainability, look at ask yourself a couple of questions. The first question is, where's our impact as a company? Okay, what are we impacting in the business that we're doing today? The second important question is, what is impacting us as a business? What could impact us as a business? And then you look at the softer areas around that in terms of, what society requires from us, and in fact, what can we do and what can we give back to society in our business? And I think where the overlap of those four questions are, that should be your priority as an SDG. And there's a lot of that is talking a lot more about the leadership in the business. How do I lead my business? How do I ensure that my leaders have a sustainability mindset? And I think we'll probably touch on that a little bit later. What is a sustainability mindset? But if I can just summarize that from my perspective, having a sustainability mindset is really just thinking about progress. How are we going to progress in our business? Okay, making money is not being sustainable. You have to be profitable. Okay, and I know that we have flipped it on its head a little bit. In the old days we used to say you've got to be profitable to be sustainable. But nowadays we say you've got to be sustainable to be profitable. And where my previous speaker said, how do I manage and how do I balance the short-term profits, the pressures from my shareholders, because those are there on a daily basis, especially for the CEO. So, well, you've got to be profitable. We cannot talk about, building pressures for our staff and giving back to the community if we don't have money to do that, right? So it's really a difficult skill, I think, from the CEO level to say, okay, how are we going to balance that? And that takes a sustainability mindset. And a sustainability mindset for me really means innovation. It is also talking about AI. How are we going to manage that? How are we going to manage the different generations coming into our business? I think Elena and I share the view that Gen Z is going to change the way that we do things in business. It's going to fundamentally change leadership. And if leaders need to get ready today on how to manage the young generation, Gen Zs are all about purpose. They really think about things. They are all about equality. They're all about tolerance. And those young leaders, and we need to encourage those young leaders to come into our businesses, and we need to keep them in our businesses. And they will, I believe, really be driving the sustainability agenda forward. The millennials, are sort of in-betweeners. They sort of prefer to work from home. They want to get rich by spending more time with their dogs. And I've got millennial children, so nothing against them. They've got wonderful qualities as well. But I'm really seeing that the future lies with the Gen Zs. Statistics are telling us that they will make up 30% of the workforce. So this is really going to be some major changes. But coming back a little bit to what sustainability is and how to drive that as a core strategic driver in the business, we need to look at progress. And how do we create that sense and that culture of progress in our business is by, first of all, understanding what progress means for us. And that definitely ties in with innovation. And then secondly, to have the mindset in the company that we can and we will progress. We can be successful and we will be successful. And what are the behaviors that will drive that in our organization? Two things that I want to take just from history. When we look at the Industrial Revolution in England, the historians tell us that there were two major factors that influenced that. The one was, yes, skills, so artisanal skills. People were really coming through with technical ability and skills, which is happening today. So we have AI skills, we've got innovation, we've got wonderful new IT platforms that we can work with. So those skills are firstly important. But secondly, it was really a coming together of societies. And in England at the time, they had drinking clubs, they had music clubs. So it was actually coming together of people, not on a work forum, but actually in a societal forum, and to allow people to talk to each other across those different hierarchies and different functional. And this is something that we can really look at inside a company, right? So when we look at how do we put our skills together and how do we encourage people to talk to each other across those functional silos, how do we get leaders to talk to the most junior people in the organization, which, as we were saying earlier, Gen Zs actually demand that. They go, I want to know why I'm doing this job. They're not going to do it. Like the baby boomers and the Gen Xs, we were just, okay, I've got to do it right. How quickly do I need to get it done? The Gen Zs are really asking the question, why am I doing this? How does it relate to the purpose of the company? And they really want to be part of the purpose of the business. So if we can relate that as leaders, let's tell them, this is the purpose. This is why we are here. Everybody needs to understand what we're trying to achieve here. Secondly, this is your role in that purpose. This is where you're going to fit in. And then, of course, rewarding that behavior. That is super important, to reward the behavior. When people are behaving in the way that you want to drive the culture in that business, you need to reward them and you need to give them constant feedback. I'm digressing, but I'm so excited to be here in Cairo, this wonderful city. Let me hand over back to you.
Right. So if we're going to make it more relatable to the audience, can you give us an example of how sustainability mindset has actually transformed everyday leadership decisions? This an example.
Okay, if I look at some of the companies that we work with, some of the companies that we advise, and we work very, very often in family businesses, for example. You often have in the family business you have the baby boomer probably who worked really hard, who achieved, who's worked very, very long hours for many days, and the next generation come in, they actually grow up in quite a, let's say, a culturally soft environment because, things are good. It was the 80s, the 90s, the early 2000s. Business was good. World economy was great. We had peace in most regions. And all of a sudden, things are really changing. So how do we navigate that? How do we motivate the the workers in our organization and the colleagues in our organization who grew up in quite a soft, progressive environment. Was it progressive? It was progressive from a monetary perspective. And then the people who are now trying to navigate, all the things that were mentioned before. It's not. We have major supply chain crises. We had the pandemic coming in. Then we have wars raging on our borders. So how do we actually manage those mindsets? And the one thing for me that really comes forward is to have courage. In my very first AIMS meeting, it was many years ago in 2005, I met a guy by the name of Andrew Kakabadze. And at that time, he was paid by the Russian government to look at what is the common denominator in boards to make them successful. So clearly successful boards, what is that one common denominator in behavioral competency that successful boards have? And it was one word, courage. The only thing that he found that was a common denominator was people with courage leading those boards. And I think that is the leaders that we are looking for today, if I can sum it up in one word. And then, what is courage? It takes courage to work long hours. It takes courage to sometimes say, no, I'm not going to work tonight because I do need to spend time with my family. It takes courage to be vulnerable. It takes courage to actually show your employees and other leaders that actually I'm struggling today. You cannot achieve your way out of mental health. This is not an option. So it takes courage to build your own boundaries and to balance those boundaries. And then talking a little bit about female leaders coming in organizations. Now that's one question that you really want to address in a little bit more detail later. But there was a time when women really needed to work a little bit harder, possibly to prove that they're as good as their male colleagues, etc. But there's one thing that is really a superpower that female leaders seem to have on quite naturally, and that is empathy. And when your manager asks you what's happening in your department, how's finance doing, how's supply chain doing, and you're only talking about the actual metrics in the business, it's not good enough. Your leader need to ask, how are you today? And they actually need to listen to that feedback. Because if I'm not well, if my mother's ill, if my family, I'm on the bridge of divorce because quite frankly, I'm not spending enough time with my husband and cooking him all the wonderful meals that he's used to, you cannot do a good job. So that courage isn't only about taking risks, taking financial risks, taking the company to places where they haven't been before. It's also the courage to be vulnerable.
So courage and women. I'm glad you connected them both together. So is it a fact that women still face, let's say, barriers at the top leadership positions nowadays?
Well, I think it depends on the company, right? So it depends on the culture in that business. If there's an egalitarian culture, I think you were mentioning earlier that they managed to really retain females in their company, which is absolutely fantastic, which means that there's a culture in the business to keep people safe, to make them feel that they really can compete on an equal level. And again, something that I want to tie into the Gen Zs coming in. They are the most tolerant generation that we have ever seen. There's a huge difference between the Gen Zs and the Gen Xs and any other generation. According to, there's a Dr. Jean Tweeder, she's a generational specialist. She's written the book called Generations. It's really interesting. If you want to know how to lead over different generations, go and read that book. I think she's now, she's just brought out another book, and she studied something like 43 million people, so it's really a good case study. And she confirms that the Gen Zs are the most different. Yes, they grew up in front of screens, they grew up very isolated, but this is what is driving them to actually look for collaboration in the workplace. Their work is actually becoming their purpose, and they are 100% tolerant. My daughter, who's 27, knew about 13 different genders, and I was like, I'm just trying to understand too. Like, what are you talking about? They're just so advanced and so progressive, and that was they don't see culture differences. It's not that they don't see it. I think they're fully tolerant of culture differences. They really look at what this person is doing. What is the task that I'm going to do with them? They don't care about the color, the gender, etc. And I think that is what we need to create in our workplace. Just coming together. This is what we're doing. This is the purpose. It doesn't matter who you are at home, and if we have some differences, we have a very polarized political views in everywhere we go, right? We go to our friends and we start talking about politics and we think, okay, no, this is not going to end well. I'm going to lose all my friends, so let's not go there. And I think they are super tolerant, which is really going to make a difference.
And if I want to add one point to what we've mentioned, maybe social media and the openness that we are in today has opened more channels for people to speak up. So when people speak up, I feel there is less space to make a mistake, whether it was not putting a certain woman in a leadership position or showing any kind of, let's say, unacceptance in workforce. So from Gen Z, and speaking of Gen Z, we're going to move to you, Ahmed, and let's talk about being tech savvy in 2025, introducing technology, introducing AI into new companies, integrating them with old school management and leadership versus including this kind of technology right now. How is it going from your experience?
Well, it became really very challenging nowadays. The continuous and rapid pace of changes is unheard of. Even I consider myself young, but I see it's getting even more difficult for me. So I can imagine for older generation how they are struggling with decision making, with even making decisions on investment, because right now, as you are saying, with the younger generation, they are completely different. I say they are AI native generation. I remember at first when I started working, so it was the internet. So everyone before this was all about faxes, phone calls was really something very difficult to make, or at least when you are traveling, to connecting with your parents, even education. I remember my first laptop was at the job. But right now, our kids, since I think they are in kindergarten, having their iPads and laptops. So the mindset and how they learn, how they use technology every day is completely different from how we do it nowadays.
So if we want to talk about integrating tech-savvy solutions within companies, how can non-tech leaders develop the curiosity and adaptability needed to keep up with AI? I mean, as you mentioned, even when it comes to the extremely older generation, I would say, with all due respect, but the older generation, for real, an example that we always share, if I sit with my mom, she wants to do something in her mobile, it's a whole day gone down the drain right there, right? It takes hours of explaining the steps of what to do, and sometimes it works and sometimes it might not. So we're talking on a much bigger example right here, integrating those AI solutions within companies where people, as you mentioned, when they started or maybe midway through their life, they were still using the faxes, telephones, and what's now not even an option and doesn't exist anymore. So how do we introduce it to the older?
Well, you said the key word. It's about curiosity. Curiosity to learn, curiosity to know what's next and what's new. And we shouldn't feel ashamed that we don't know what's the new things. It's all about surrounding yourself with the right people and surrounding yourself with the younger generation who can help you really to understand what's going on. You can see right now unlimited amount of podcasts, trainings online about your specific industry, about what AI means for your business. So there are unlimited sources of information and trainings you can use nowadays to really help you. And more importantly, as I said, it's really surrounding yourself with the right type of leaders who can help you to understand how technology and AI helps you. Because what I'm seeing right now is the hype of everyone. I wanted to have AI in my factory. I want to have an AI in my business. So in the recent study by MIT, 95% of people trying to adopt AI failed. Why? Because they don't really understand how it fit their business, what it means for their business. So it's really very important to understand what it means, how it will impact your business, either bottom line, top line, you name it. So this is really very critical to understand, to make sure you have the right formula which will help your strategy to work. It's not about really having the latest and the greatest systems on your system, on your factory, but really understand how it will help you and will help to enable your team and your employees.
Right. So if I want to take it a step backwards, you built advances into a global company, right? So what does it really mean to be tech savvy for leaders?
Tech savvy, in my opinion, right now is understand how technology will help you to be better in what you do in your business. Not necessarily you need to understand what's AI, what's cloud computing, what's data analytics. It's okay to have the headlines to understand how it will impact your business. But really what's more important is make sure you have the right data, you have the right information to make sure you are taking the right decisions when it comes to technology investments, how it will help you, how it will help each leader in your organization. So again, it's even for myself right now, I don't know every single thing about AI, but I know who to approach to educate me about this topic to make sure it helps me to take the right decision moving forward.
Right. So you yourself, Ahmed, you're an angel investor in few tech startups in the region, right? And I'd like to point out this or pinpoint this question because we had a conversation earlier about startups. A lot of the younger generation, and as we mentioned, Gen Z, most of the time they're moving towards aiming for startups, starting their own business, thinking that they're going to be the leader of their own selves. Much easier, much more convenient for them. Versus working in an organization with a certain hierarchy and a great opportunity to learn. So can you please speak more about that?
Very interesting. I was having the same conversation with my son, the other day. So he's planning, okay, I'll have my own startup. It's kind of, he wants me to write him the first check, of course. So, but it's really that challenge right now with this younger generation. Again, it's about the social media. They see the fancy founders who exit his startup with $1 billion and shares here and there and on private jets and all of this. But the other side, they don't see how many of them fails. If you look at any portfolio for a venture capital, how many startups they fail and how they succeed, I would say at max it's 10% who succeed. So this is unfortunately what no one is marketing for. No one is sharing. And this is what I see every CEO, every leader in organization need to inform and educate the younger generation, starting from our kids and even to the freshmen at your organization. And the second part, I believe, which is very critical, which again, being tech savvy, is fostering innovation and provide the right environment for Gen Z to be able to innovate and stay at any corporation. These young generation are all about don't put kind of borders around them. They are different. And the problem I see is that we all the time we are trying to convince them this is the right way to do your job. And they keep it challenging you every day. No, I have a better way. So I believe if you give them the right environment to innovate and don't be shy that they could be smarter than you, they might have better tools to do it. They can find actually systems online that are new, to take it to the next level. This is actually what will help people to stay, will enable them to stay, They are completely different. If they find an application they don't like, they remove it and download a new one. In our older days, we have only like 2 video games. We stuck with them for like tens of years, and that's it. So the mindset, the nature of this generation, how they operate is completely different.
So if I want to move to you, Elena, and your branch of work with boards, what are the biggest shifts in what boards expect from leaders today?
Yeah, actually, what they expect is what it has been mentioned by the rest of the panelists.
Right.
So, yes, they don't, and as you mentioned at the beginning, they don't want the leader who will just bring results. I mean, this used to be the old-fashioned board, let's say, design. So what the new boards want, they want this leader that will be able to retain and engage talent, and especially the Gen Zs, that the CEO should build the culture, should transform the organizational culture in order to maintain and make an environment that is sustainable and at the same time change, let's say, positive, in order to maintain these people in the organization. Also, some other words that have been mentioned, and the resilient leader, the emotional intelligent leader, the authentic leader, and also I will add on this, the vulnerable leader who will know and say sometimes that, I don't know how to do that, So we have been recently, we're working with a tech company that is quite very modern and, in their leadership style, very young. And what they have implemented a mentoring program that is bottom up. So each of the senior leaders, they have a mentor from the Gen Z. Wow. So what they are doing is that they are supporting them with, as Ahmed said, utilizing the technology and implementing things that they don't know how, or also co-creating ideas and co-creating solutions, utilizing their ideas. So it's the first time I saw that, of course. It was just the first client who asked us to implement such a thing. But I found it, very interesting, and it adds value. And of course, we will see the results as we go along. But I think it was very well received also from the senior leaders.
Wow, that's a wonderful idea. 2 questions. How did the leaders take it? As you mentioned, from bottom up, we're talking about 20 years difference here? Maybe
less, because it's a young company.
Okay.
It's one of our local Cypriot unicorns that they have presence in, so many countries. So it's on the fintech, so they are young.
They're a bit younger, but still, in general and in human nature, when someone very young come over to me and go like, no, you're doing this wrong, or no, I can help you do it better, I'm going to question, but I'm older and I have better knowledge, better experience in life, right? We have this mindset. I think it's built in within us by default.
Exactly.
But I would like to hear from you, how did the leaders take it? And is this part, or can we consider it part of bridging the gap between the Gen Z and them entering the workforce?
To answer your first question, how the leaders take it, we did a lot of work on branding this program and engaging also the leaders on what do you need from your, young mentors. So we engaged them in the process. We kept them in the loop throughout the design process. And of course, I'm not going to say that everyone was positive and everyone loved it. We have, as you mentioned just before, this mentality that, but I'm the older leader, I know better, which comes with us, and I think we are all have this at the back of our minds, even if we want to show that we are change agents. But it was very well branded and very well tailored in order to be accepted. So, we did a lot of work from before in the design phase in order to get acceptance. We don't just went out and presented that and start from there. Your second question,
is it considering filling up the gap?
Yeah. Yes, I believe that it is a great, let's say, activity that it helps in bridging the gap, because working with those people and being close to the Gen Z or the younger generations who are more tech savvy and they're more open to change, and they have been brought up in a world of disruption, because all those things that we say now, business as unusual and things like that, they were growing into this world.
Right.
So they are more used to that. They are more used to change. They are more resilient. They are more open. So working with them, it's helping, I think, bridging the gap. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Leonie. Sometimes it's in the simplest forms where we find the solution that we look to acquire. So if you were advising a CEO on how to create modern leadership to their board, what would you emphasize on?
Yeah, I actually am coaching a lot of CEOs, and I have been coaching CEOs throughout my career as a certified coach. And what are the things that we've seen changing now is these words, to build resilience, to be more open, to be willing to engage in new practices, in accepting sustainability, be inclusive. So I think that the characteristics that the new leader has are this now. And this is not something that I'm saying. I mean, if you research the new surveys on the new leadership frameworks and new leadership eras, you will find these words. So it's all about authenticity, vulnerability, emotional intelligence, inclusiveness. So these are the key characteristics of the new leader. And I know that for some older leaders, because I work with them and I coach them, and you see the resistance at the beginning. They don't accept that and say, but how come I'm the leader? But what I'm telling them is that, we are in a world where you have to, shift the two C's. So you have to leave from the, command and control to the coach and connect.
Right.
So I think this is very important for the new leadership.
It's a totally different approach, and I think it's going to take time, if I'm not mistaken, right?
For sure. All changes in time.
Exactly. More than 10 years. I mean, is it going to be easier to see the change happening within the coming 10 years versus the 10 years that have passed?
I believe that because now we have Gen Z entering the market, and they are, as already mentioned, they bring a very refreshing look. They have a lot more demands. They look for purpose-driven environments. So they want to know they are given a job, and the first question is, so what is the value of me doing that? It's not that I take it and I do it. So it is a totally different landscape. And I believe that the change might take less this time because it is quite enforced.
And by default, I feel like the days are passing faster. The knowledge is going on faster. Everything is just super fast. The day starts, it ends. And I believe the same is going to go with enforcing such new additions, whether it was adding the new generation within the workforce or including tech-savvy solutions to our companies, appreciating younger generation, giving more space to women, looking at higher position hierarchy for women to be part of. It's all being built up for us to see in the coming years, inshallah. So we've covered CEO challenges, technology, sustainability, purpose, and generational shift. This is a question to all of you panelists, and I'd like to start with you, Mr. Emad. If you had to pick one capability that's most critical for leaders today, what would it be and why?
I think it's emotional intelligence, by far, because as I mentioned, the CEO deals 50% of his time with CEOs, regardless where in his world. So unless you know how to deal with the people emotionally, and also understanding your having emotional intelligence also covers your self-awareness. How do you feel at this moment? How you can control your emotions? How to react under pressure? All just come under emotional intelligence. So unless you know how to do that, it will be very difficult for you to succeed. So emotional intelligence, including self-awareness, is crucial for leaders in my perspective.
Nice. So moving on to you, Elena.
Yeah, I would also say emotional intelligence because I believe that it's a key thing in our days. But I will add to that the resilience and the openness to change, because we are living in constant change and in the VUCA world, as it has already been mentioned. And I think that this is another thing on top of emotional intelligence that is necessary.
And Ahmed?
Adding to what mentioned already, I believe agility, it comes really with embracing the change, because especially with technology, technology is right now in the intersection of all the functions of your organization. It's no longer IT, it's an HR and finance and everywhere. So you need to embrace the change. You need to be super agile to implement what's coming, to be ready for what's coming, because we are seeing right now big corporations disappear in a year or two. So be ready for it.
And to you, Leonie?
Thank you. Yes, I think, after today's discussion, every leader is going to run away because, they realize that there's so much that they need to be and to be to everybody, not just to their workers, but to their families and also be to themselves. But I'll come back to what I mentioned earlier. to courage, and again, not just the courage to take on new things, to go where uncharted waters, but also the courage to be vulnerable. And that does take emotional maturity. So I think really at the end of the day, emotional maturity, we look across the world leaders today, and it's very clear who has emotional maturity and who doesn't. It's not difficult to see this. And it takes emotional maturity also to be courageous and to be vulnerable.
Sometimes, and correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes people take emotional, I don't want to say emotional intelligence because it's one thing, but showing affection at work as weakness in leadership positions. I'd like to hear from you. Is it weak to show empathy towards the people who work with you?
No, I think that takes more courage than weakness, for sure. And I want to, something that you mentioned earlier about being a CEO. You're smiling at the one person for longer than the other, and you're not paying attention. It's really amazing the influence that a CEO can have in a company. I see it in my own daughter, who's basically Gen Z. That I mentioned earlier. So she studied a master's in documentary film, achieved an 80%, and then decided, okay, no, actually I'm not going to work in film. I want to work in corporate, which was a mind-boggling pivot for us. I mean, she grew up in a family where we were talking business all day long. So it must have, rubbed off around the dinner table at some point. And off she went. She started applying for positions, and today she's working. Well, for the last 3 months only. She's just started at Philip Morris, and they all work in the office. They've got a big office. Everybody's there. It's busy. It's marketing people. It's sales people. And I look at how she looks at her manager. And we were talking earlier about your first manager. And I mean, she is so finely tuned to the way that he treats her, the way that he treats other people. It's super important. And then from what we thought she was going to be this tree hugger, making lovely documentary films about the environment, etc. And now she's basically busy changing the world, one nicotine patch at a time, which I was like, I'm really quite shocked at at how this turns out. But she's finding that purpose, she's finding that environment, she's finding the feedback, the being part of something exciting. And that is really what everybody needs and what everybody wants. There's no difference to the generations, I really think, in that respect.
That takes us to our next question, a question that I am looking forward to hear from you. So I want you to go back a few years in time and think of your first day at work. And once you do that, I want you to think of the leader you are today. If you, on your first day of work, is meeting you in your leadership position right now, what would you think of yourself?
Okay, this is many years ago, previous millennium. But I have to say, my first manager, I wasn't lucky enough to have a great manager as my first manager. He was a guy. It was during the time that Kodak went bankrupt. I mean, you all remember what happened to Kodak. Are we talking about becoming a dinosaur? And in South Africa, there was a local company called Color Lab took over all their contracts, and I bravely went off, left home at when I finished school at 17, and I started working at this firm, doing invoices. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Okay, I still didn't know my debits from my credits after passing accounting and matric, so I was a little bit lost. And this guy came across from England to now try and run this flailing business. And I have to say, if I have to go through the list of what I want in a manager, he failed every single one. But I have some of my colleagues here today, so it would be interesting to hear what they say about me as a manager. And I do think we tend to do that. We tend to become the leaders that we want, right? Which is not always the right way. And in a moment of self-reflection, I realized that maybe I'm the kind of leader that I wanted to see. And I can certainly give more feedback. I think I'm very much the purpose and this is where we're going. Let's all go together. And I do sometimes forget to look behind me a little bit and say, okay, let me give you some feedback on how this is going, because I just think everything's going great. I'm the internal optimist, so sometimes I also need to reflect a little bit on not everybody's as optimistic as what I am.
And you mentioned getting feedback still in your leadership position. I feel like we as employees, sometimes we look at the people up in the hierarchy and go like, okay, tell me what you think of us, because that's how we get accreditation. And somehow the imposter syndrome, which we mentioned earlier today, might fade away when you get a compliment on what you've done or accredited for something great that you've done at work, right? Does it also go up as you go up in your leadership hierarchy?
Listen, you always need feedback, and I think we alluded earlier to being a CEO and not getting that feedback. It's the loneliest position in the world is being a CEO, because you are so isolated. You have to be everything to everybody, and you think, okay, I'm lighting everybody else's fire. Who's going to actually light my fire? And you really, really need this, and this is why, being part of an organization like AIMS, I have to say I get that, so I get to run my own company, but at the same time, I've got colleagues around the world that I can look up to, that I can learn from, who keeps me honest and humble. And being humble is super important, I think, as a CEO. So as much as you want that feedback, and yes, you never stop wanting feedback to know that I'm actually doing an okay job. But yeah, I do other things also to stay humble, which I'm really bad at, like trying to ride horses, and I find that really works as well.
Ahmed, I'd like to hear from you. The old you and the new you meeting together. What?
The main thing I'm thinking of is really take it easy.
Oh.
I have been always running, because especially with technology, you have to keep running, you have to keep learning, and putting the CEO factor on top of this. So as I like the term you used, everything to everyone. So you have to have the answers to everything. It was, we bootstrapped the company, so I had to be the legal, the finance, the IT, the HR at the beginning, so it was meeting customer expectations. We have been global, so really traveling everywhere. So I have stressed myself to the max, unfortunately, at certain times, I didn't see my family for long periods of time. So it's really about having this balance, in your life will help you really. You will get there eventually, but slowly.
Let me know if I'm getting too personal here, because I had heard it from you as well, Leonie. Being away from family, and you sitting right here means that you've gotten certain places, gotten to a certain place of success. And I've heard it a lot in different interviews, different people that have spoken. Time, and I believe that there isn't such thing as perfect time management where I give time for my family, I'm giving time for my work and my health at a point in life. Do you feel like you've overgiven work in order to be where you are right now versus the time that you would have spent with the family?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, it's part of being courage, It's one of the reasons I have to give up my CEO position to a new CEO, and I prefer the board seat more, is really to start looking after my health and after my family as well, So it takes really a lot of courage to take such a decision and give up all this,
empire that you've built.
Exactly, yeah.
That does take a lot of courage, and we were just discussing when is the right time to let go, for a leader to let go of their position in order to open space for a younger generation to take over. And you mentioned how hard it was for you at the beginning to let go.
Yes.
And did someone, you are young, but did someone younger take the place of
no, it's actually a friend of mine who's already was in the organization, so I passed it to him,
Okay.
I wish him a good luck. I was supposed to be with us here today, but he's not, But I think he learned the lesson from me, so he's trying to take it step by step, and balance it more. Unfortunately for me, it was a health issue that really was an eye-opener for me, that it's time to...
It's like an alarm.
Yeah.
It's time to take a break and look after yourself.
Exactly.
And priorities change with time, don't they?
Yeah.
And next up to you too, Elena. Let's see, the old you, what do they think of the you are today?
I relate with all the things that have already been mentioned, but okay, I was lucky. I had a very good leader. I grew up with a good leader, a person that was very emotionally intelligent, very positive, and very willing to listen feedback. And this was in a Big Four. I was in PwC. I stayed there 19 years. I left as a director because I thought that I needed to do what Ahmed just mentioned. I mean, I had to live my life as well. It's not only work and life, but many of the things that I bring, I adopted, come from my previous leader. And also the one thing that he taught us since we were very young, it was this openness to feedback, because he was also very open to feedback. And he was saying that you should consider feedback as a blessing, and feedback is a blessing, if it is, of course, well-intended. This needs to be on the table, of course, to be well-intended and given to you with care. So this is something that I think that guided the way I grew. And I believe that, what you bring with you makes you either better or change you, So
Let's hope it will change you to the better.
yes, change you to the better, of course. Yeah. Change you to the better or grow you. Whatever experiences you had.
100%.
So, consider myself lucky.
Would you like to be your own boss?
Huh?
Do you think the young you would like you as a boss? Would like to have you as their boss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
I'm kind. I'm nice. You are, honestly. And anyone would be very, very happy to work with you. I believe. And moving on to you, Emad, if you'd let us know the old you versus the you are today.
Okay, I would take the moment being a CEO. So I was very arrogant before being a CEO.
Oh.
Okay, so arrogancy decreased a lot the moment I became a CEO, which I was personally surprised, but I found out to continue to be arrogant or I am the one who got the CEO job will not survive. It will not let me stay in my job. So that was a major change. Even the first 3 months after being the CEO, my family was telling me, "You are the CEO outside, not here." So because that was that wasn't impacting me even. So I managed also to be the CEO, but also outside the home, not inside the home. So, but the major change is arrogance. I lost it. Okay,
Wow.
I remember maybe 10 years before being a CEO, I had an assistant. Okay, she was with me for 3-4 months, and then suddenly she came one morning and she resigned. Okay, why? She was good and she was really helping me. She told me I was shocked because since 1 week I'm wearing black, always black, and you didn't ask me what's wrong. So I thought that was maybe she liked to wear black. Obviously, a relative was passed away, and she wear black because she was sad about it.
Wow.
And that, of course, was a major alarm for me to start to understand, and to the people who work with me to have more emotional intelligence. That was also another learning experience that you do. If you are really deep in your work, every day in, day out, you don't see people around you, their emotional intelligence, how they act. It's becoming tough. And of course, as a CEO, that's multiplied by 100 at least.
Yeah, I can see that. So back to our main question, and I would really like to. I'm emphasizing on this question because all of us on day one of work, we're very nervous. We don't know what to expect. And we're really hoping for the best. يعني الله يسهل هيك بيكون الموضوع. And what we expect from the boss is to be nice, kind, or at least the very simple kid I was. I was looking for a kind person who would give me information easily, who would share knowledge. But it's not always the fact, and it's not always what we see. So I was like, no, when I grow up, whenever I can help anyone who's a bit younger, I'm going to do that. Whenever I get the chance to help someone learn a new skill or anything especially in media, I'm telling you, it's very competitive. I believe it is very competitive in different ways, in every caliber and in every specific, let's say, workforce. But it was very competitive for me. From some, I've seen a lot of knowledge and I've gotten a lot of knowledge. From others, it's simply, no, you go find somewhere else to learn. So that's why I want to focus again on this question of the young man who went to work on the first day of work. First day of work. If he met you as their boss today, what would they think?
No, my first day of work, that was completely different than today. Because I started as a telecom field engineer, okay? So my first day of work, I had to go to the field office, okay?
Okay.
That's a real story. And the field office was in a dense populated part of Cairo, which it has an address, but the address, of course, not very clear. Then the boss at that time, it was a German project manager, told me, look, you go down from 6th of October Bridge, and then you follow a certain microbus, which is, it goes only to this dense populated, and then what will happen? He told me, just follow the microbus and it will stop in front of the office. Okay, fine. So I followed the microbus, okay, and then he stopped. The first station was in front of the office. Of course, the office was a very normal building, and then I went up. Of course, this office was controlling, maybe overseeing 20-30% at that time of the telecom infrastructure of the country. And of course, it was completely different inside the office. So that was my first day at the office going there. It was a shock for me. Of course, the shock to follow the microbus and the shock to see what's going on. So, and I remember this guy was very, very stubborn, very tough, very rigid, okay, very old school. It was like, he was controlling the engineers like, and excuse my French, like in the military. No, I have been in the military before as a soldier, so he was very tough. But he made it work. I spent with him 5 years. And I met him down the road when I was a CEO. He came here as also another project, as a project manager for another project. And of course, was a completely different way of dealing with him and dealing with me. So that's for me is a learning experience. So the first day now as a CEO is completely different, but that was really, really my first day at work.
Yani, those very few minutes when you are taking the first steps towards entering Aslan, the first organization you're going to work at, I think they build a lot in your character, and for some reason they resonate in your mind, thinking of how your future is going to look like. Well, alhamdulillah, your futures look just wonderful from now until then, and we're definitely looking forward to more achievements. So if I want to move on to our final question, and again, I would like to hear from all our panelists, opening up the doors for the younger generation to take the lead. What is the mark for you that would call like, yes, this person can be a leader now? Is it their knowledge? Is it their personality? Any acquired skills? Elena, if we can start with you, please.
Yeah, okay, it's all of what the things that you mentioned. But we see that the Gen Z will have a shorter ladder in growing into leadership roles. And this is also through research that they say that. And the reasons is because they are very, very involved from the first day into the business and into the tasks. So they start from wanting to know what is happening. They, as Leonie mentioned, they want to come to the office. So we see them not so much liking these hybrid environments that are in Europe. They are very, established by now. So they want them to come in the office just because they want to be involved. So they want to know what they are doing, what is the purpose, why am I here, what is the value I'm giving, and all these through this they build skills that will help them grow in the ladder.
So you mentioned that they're going to climb up the ladder faster, as we're seeing from the given situation right now. Do you think them climbing up the ladder means we're going to have earlier retirement age for Gen Z? That's a deep one, wasn't it?
That's a challenging question. Actually, I don't know, because we haven't seen that yet. But I don't know. I don't know, maybe not, because they have this growing mindset and they come with it. And I think that it's because they grow up with it, so many things around them, the iPads, the social media and everything. So they are growing and learning in a continuous basis.
Right.
So I don't think that they will, they will retire early, because they will keep learning and they value continuous development.
But I think, Leonie, since it's mentioned, and as you mentioned, we are going through a very fast pace life right now, and the development is different. Us being exposed to everything via internet and social media, it's very accessible. AI is there to help us with any information that we need. Hopefully, it's most of the time correct. But this development means that also processing the future is going to be faster. So I think this is something that maybe we should look at, of when they get to their leadership, when they get to the optimum. Before it was the age of 60, maybe they stay up in the hierarchy 70, 80, 90, right? Right now, if they reach this optimum at 35, and then what? You know, this was my question for the thought, or for the future.
I would say that this has already changed, because we can see so many new organizations, fintech environments, that the leaders are not even 40.
True.
You know, so this has already changed, I believe. And they are more open also to inviting the Gen Z in the organizations and growing with them,
right?
Not grow them. You know, it's a very different way of mindset.
Like the example you gave of them being part of the growth spectrum. That's
and there is also a survey by the European Mentoring and Coaching Council that says that the Gen Z is at an average much more coachable than any of the previous generations.
Wow.
So they are, you know, more open and more willing to learn and work with a coach and grow. So all these characteristics, I think, will bring them faster.
And time will show us at the end of the day. We just have to wait, you know, we don't have to rush it. Moving on to you, Ahmed, I'd like to hear from you, please.
Well, I believe that the number one skill you need to see in Gen Z is their communication skills, along with their understanding of the company purpose.
Right.
Because many of the Gen Z we see right now are very introverts. They like texting more. They don't really want to go. If I would use the Emad term, be on the stage presenting and sharing with a big audience their ideas, their strategies. You need to have the skill to be a leader, to be able to really take the lead. And to your question about retirement, I think they will retire earlier than the average age. Okay. If they really achieve the, I would say, the wealth they are aspiring for. Because I'm actually seeing a lot of videos right now on YouTube about people retiring at 35 and at 30. And they just embracing the idea of exploring the world, spending more time with their families, with their kids. So there are really a big shift is coming. We would see coming in that kind of life.
Yeah, it's nice. It's interesting, but it's scary for me. It's a scary thought at the age of 35 for a person to retire. It's going to be fun for the first year, right? I explored the world. I traveled a lot. I lived the life that I was always looking forward to. But then what? Am I going to sit at home, or am I going to work on building a new business from scratch?
Yeah, we will see. Yeah,
we will see. We'd love to hear from you, Leonie.
Okay, I'm going to be the controversial opinion and say that I think they are not going to retire early. From my perspective, you know, we had the baby boomers who are, a lot of them still working, you know, like they just don't want to stop. They don't know how to stop working. And I think Gen Xers are a little bit similar in some ways, but then Gen Xers had the opportunity to make a lot of money quite early on. You know, the economy was good, everything happened. The millennials are already retired. I mean, I don't know whether you've noticed, but I mean, they have got the best work-life balance probably of all the generations, and a lot of them really, they just go back home. They work a little bit, even for 10 years, and they go, oh, no, this career is not working out for me. I think I'm going to go back home to my parents and maybe study something else. And yeah, so I think they're quite different. I believe that the Gen Zs are really going to be the generation. Yes, I think they're coming in hot, so I think they are starting really hard, working hard. But that they are working hard to change things because they are seeing that bigger picture. They're seeing the purpose, and that's why I believe this is the generation to drive real sustainability in businesses as well. I'm already hearing from my daughter, like 3 months in, like, actually, I think I'm going to start up. They closed down their sustainability division in South Africa, or their CSR division. I'm going to work on a way to start that. I'm going to be that person to do this. And she's already going out on like cleaning days and taking videos and making sure that, the managers see this kind of thing. These people have an amazing amount of energy, and energy, as we all know, is a really key ingredient for driving business. And then I think to what Elena also spoke about is these kids are all going through therapy. I mean, they all have therapists. It's absolutely amazing. 21, 22, 23-year-old kids who have psychologists and therapists and coaches. They ask for that. They ask for the feedback. And that's why I really believe that they are going to be the generation to do it better than us. Your previous question about, and we alluded to how hard it is to drive your own business, to run your own business. In fact, I was reading just yesterday, there's a blog by Stephen Bartlett called Ask 100 CEOs. I don't know whether you guys have read it. And the question was, has your success ever led your loved ones to resent you? And this is a hard question. And this one CEO said, by the time that I've created the life that I want, I'm too tired to enjoy it. And I think in our generation, we really have seen that. We've been there. We have seen that resentment in terms of our success. I think Gen Z is going to do it differently. But we'll see.
We'll see, 100%. And back to you, Mr. Emad.
Yeah. Which one, the retirement earlier or?
Well, let's tackle both.
Okay, so I think there is a difference if I talk about not necessarily Gen Z, but the people who are working in generally in the tech. I'm not against tech. I'm very tech savvy as well, but just and the people working, I would call it the physical world, which means infrastructure, factories, producing real products that stays with us for years. There is a different perception,
right?
Because in the tech, the lifetime of a tech product is 3 years maximum. With AI, it would be much less. The lifetime of another physical product, infrastructure project, is 10 years, 20 years, and still it will be valid even in the age of AI, because with AI you need data centers and you need energy, you need infrastructure, and today that's one of the major bottleneck which will decrease the speed of AI, because you will reach your limit very soon.
Right.
I'm not talking Egypt, I'm talking globally. And we have seen now, even in US, they're buying anything that can burn fuel to give electricity. Anything, okay? So there is a physical world. So if you work in the physical world, if you work in infrastructure, in factories, in businesses, not necessarily 100% tech, definitely you will have a different view than retiring at 35. That's my view. Because you'll see that you are in an organization, in a company, or even building your own business that takes decades to succeed and to be sustainable. So that's the first. And I agree with you. What will happen? Okay, the first 2 years I'll start to explore the world, and then what will happen? Or stay at home? What shall I do with my time? Unless I do something that benefit the world, yes, with solving real problems. Maybe if they will solve real problems, then that's fine. And we have a lot of problems around us. That would be a good cause. But just saying enjoying the world, that I wouldn't agree with. And what was the other question?
We were talking. Whoa, my memory has been going down the train. We've been discussing leadership skills and giving up.
Dealing with people will become a challenge for the Gen Z, because they're not dealing with people. They're dealing with electronic, with messaging, WhatsApp, and social media. So dealing with people, this will be a hard skill to acquire, and comes on top of AI, which is now. Look what happened when OpenAI did the upgrade to GPT-5 in August. It was, people were crying worldwide because they were using the older version at their therapist,
right?
And the new version was not human enough. It was like a real software answering your question. So everybody complained. And that's why they forced OpenAI to bring an older model, which is more human in answering the requests. So now we are talking to AI as therapist, as a friend, as whatever.
Right.
That's put the pressure that we need people who can really deal. We need leaders who can deal with people, and that will become a very rare leadership skills, in my opinion. It's already rare today, but it will be even much more.
Yeah, all the changes that we have spoken of are simply ideas, and I believe time will only prove what will happen, because we can never predict the future. But I would definitely like to thank our panelists for their time, for their energy, for the knowledge that you've shared with us today, Mr. Emad, Elena, Ahmed, and Leonie. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, everyone, for being here with us. Do you mind if we take a couple of questions from the audience, if we have any? Do you have any questions from the audience? هل في عنا أي أسئلة? Yeah, can we have a mic, please? I can take one of these mics, yes? Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much for this very insightful discussion today about the challenges for leaders in this ever-changing environment. My question is about it's an organizational challenge that is being posed by AI. So recently there is this global trend that companies are not hiring juniors, and basically, since we're talking about Gen Zs entering the market, it's becoming a challenge for them to find actually jobs. So many companies globally have started reducing the number of entry levels. There is a CEO friend of mine who leads a regional multinational company. The first thing they did was they made the mid-level employees use heavily the co-pilot and the AI tools and stuff like that. So eventually they did not become, needing the juniors who used to do some of that work. And eventually the next step they did was reducing the number of entry-level jobs. And I was reading in the Harvard Business Review recently, they're saying that maybe the traditional pyramid structure of the organization is going to morph into a diamond structure. But that, of course, poses a challenge for companies, because how are you going to replace the mid-levels when they go up or out? So how are you going to really train the base or bring in fresh people to progress in the organization? So that's a challenge that maybe I thought I'd get your views on this kind of challenge and how you see it, how AI is going to make such a challenge for leaders to, and how leaders are going to actually deal with it. How do you view this, and how do you think companies will evolve to solve this problem?
Can we?
Yeah, but
Look, that's a very interesting topic. And actually, a couple of months ago, I had a discussion with a smaller audience, particularly on this point. And that was driven by the announcement of the CEO of OpenAI and a couple of other CEOs that AI is taking the entry-level jobs up to 50%. My view on that is that the entry job, the bar is raised for the entry jobs. So if today you are entering a company to do 1, 2, 3, this 1, 2, 3 are not needed anymore, because you really have I don't want to use the terminology AI agents, but you have AI software that is doing the job at a tenth of the cost, much faster. So instead of having a team of 10 people doing, I would say, for example, market research, internet market research, you would need one, and the rest will be AI. That's happening today. So the bar is raised already, and we need to ensure that the new graduates, I'm not talking about Egypt, but even globally, that this gap will be closed. And I had a discussion with a couple of young non-Egyptian, German, and other European nationality, and they were really very concerned about this statement of the different global tech CEOs, because one of them told me that what will happen to our career path if we don't start as an entry job? So how are we going to build our path? Because entry job was the first one that you get in, that you start to build your career. So if this one disappears, so are we going to be the next? How to go to the next one? So what I tried to explain to her, that the bar has been raised, and it will be raised a little bit going forward. And you need to be the new graduates need to be prepared for that. But then her response was, people are already having difficulties to find jobs at the entry. So now we are asking the people that the bar is raised, and to get more information, to get more knowledge and educated to get the job. So her view was that this will be very difficult on the people, and I agree with her. But unfortunately, this is happening, and I'm not sure it will continue with the same pace, because again, there are still limitations. Now people are still, at least the AI company are started to see there will be limitations. So, but it started to, at least I started to see that really entry jobs are becoming automated by AI. Not in all industries, of course. If you go to the industry which is not reliant 100% on tech, of course, the entry job will not be taken, for sure. Yeah. But basically, it's impacting white collars. Let me take it call it like that. White collar are heavily impacted by this AI thing.
Right. Something to add, Mr. Ahmed?
Yeah, actually, in my opinion, the whole organization structure will change, because it's not really about going to more on the diamond and the number of jobs will be decreased. It's actually will be redefined. And this is an important factor that a lot of organization is still not ready for or anticipating. Yes, there will be jobs will be eliminated, but more will be created. And again, taking the example I said about the internet when it came to life, before this, there were people who are doing the typing machines and writing letters and all of this. All of this disappeared, but new jobs being created. Even in IT, you have your typical IT administrator. Right now, you need someone who's managing your cloud, someone else managing your data environment, someone even on the CEO level, on your leadership team who is managing your CIO, who is managing your data and information systems, and how to have your factory integrated with your IT system. So more jobs will be created. It's just we are still at the very beginnings, and this is the fear it's creating around the world right now among the young generation. So I believe every leader is responsible right now to ask their HR functions to explore what are the new roles and what it does required for the new graduates to join us.
And maybe there should be a program where there is a connection, an interconnection between the government, and if I want to talk about public universities or even private universities, where the topics or the specialties that they bring to the universities are those of future, and maybe stop or decrease the number of students who are graduating from specialties that are no longer needed.
Yeah, I believe in intro, for example, we have academies where we go, it's part of our CSR, we go for universities to train the younger generation on what's coming next, even if we will not hire them, but usually we hire like the top 10 out of each academy, and then we make the rest of them available to the market so they can benefit from working to other organization or maybe even starting their own business.
Oh, that's a wonderful idea. Do we have, I think we have a time for one more question. Do you have any more questions on the floor? Nope, I think we've explained it all. Thank you so much for your time, for your energy. I'm honored to be your panel moderator today, to be in the middle of such great minds. Such a great privilege. Thank you so much, and make sure you enjoy the rest of this wonderful evening. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to an end for our panel discussion. Can you hear it up for our speakers, please? Thank you so much, and make sure you enjoy the rest of this wonderful evening. If you need anything or if you have any questions, the AIMS team are at the desk outside, and you can find them all around. They're here to answer. Enjoy the rest of your day.